or Markiplier with Informatica. So we've been using ABACUS for a couple of years. We purchased it and started using it to model our diagrams and data flows. But we quickly found the need to kind of roadmap our capabilities looking ahead 1 to 2 years, and that's why we started to develop the epics and looking at how to plan for the future across the various IT service delivery teams. So what exactly is an epic? So here's our definition with constraints around what an architecture epic is. So basically, it's a body of work that provides a capability to the enterprise. Pretty vague without the constraints. So we put constraints around it to give a bit of highlight around what type of work it is. So we constrain it by giving a time frame. In that time frame, it should be accomplished within a quarter. So that's the body of work, could be done within 1 quarter. The scope of work should be performed by a single delivery team, so it gives ownership to that specific team. We have many teams within IT that are delivering and maintaining the applications. So this body of work would be owned by them. The delivery of work should be done in a project. So it's not a simple Jira ticket that gets put in and a little bit of work gets done and implemented. This is really work that should be governed well within a project and released into production. The work should be configured in one system. Of course, there are exceptions because there are integrations between systems. So the integration ones, there are 2 or more systems, whether they're connected through APIs or connected through a third-party data integration system that is connecting and transferring the data between those 2 systems. But normally, we try and limit it to one particular system because that's where the work is being done. That's where the service delivery teams are working. It also should be contained within one enterprise value stream. What is a value stream? So if you think about all of the enterprise capabilities throughout the company and the enterprise, there could be hundreds of thousands of processes and capabilities that are happening. If you roll those up into an aggregated view, we have less than 20 enterprise value streams. So we can map an epic to a body of or a bundle of enterprise processes that will be affecting. We didn't want to make it too granular, but at a high level, what is the enterprise value stream? What is that bundle of enterprise processes that this body of work is going to be affecting and impacting? Also, the epics do have dependencies on each other, so you have to sequence them. It could be within a value stream, they could be across value streams, they could be across projects, across delivery teams. So it takes a considerable work to make sure that they are sequenced properly. So looking at really what the value streams are, so here's just a subset of the value streams. We have idea to offer, market to demand, lead to opportunity. Those are the top ones up there. And we put those epics into those value streams with that body of work. So for example, an epic that is put into idea to offer, that's going to be around our products and services and the product catalog and the pricing of that service to our customers. Any processes, enterprise processes around that go into that value stream. Market to demand, that's around marketing, campaigning, the enterprise processes around that and around demand generation, mostly working with the marketing ops team. Epics will go into there. And again, lead to opportunity, another one. And that's where you take the marketing qualified lead and you pass it off to the sales team as a sales qualified or sales opportunities, and they manage the relationship with the customer. So I think you get it. Those are the enterprise bundle. And we have about just less than about 20 of those enterprise value streams. And so putting an epic into a value stream is very important because that kind of determines the processes of the company that it will affect. The cross-value stream epics are very important. That's a different component within ABACUS that we created. And there are we created that so that we could give visibility and governance to the enterprise, the architectural epics that span value streams that must be delivered together. So if there's a body of works and two epics that need to go together, maybe one in the marketing ops and one for the sales ops, passing the leads from maybe Marketo to Salesforce. Those epics should be done together within the same quarter. And that's we created that cross value stream architectural epic to track that and to govern that. And we'll have those conversations with the different teams that are implementing those specific epics. And of course, the epics should be within a project, delivered within that project, within a quarter. So they could be in different projects, but we want them to be delivered in the same quarter if it is a cross value stream. So we have a way to look at that and to govern that. But the epics, if they're not tightly coupled, but maybe dependent upon each other, we have a way of tracking the dependencies between epics. So those epics could be in various projects in various quarters over some time frame, and we could still track the dependencies so that in case one project decides to descope the amount of work and pushes it to a next quarter, we can see are we running tight against having these epics that are sequenced together properly. Then we can have those conversations with the delivery teams and the project managers and see if we can resolve any delays in producing those architectural epics and those capabilities to the enterprise. So a little bit more detail about the architecture epics. We have really 5 different types of epics that we have. And these are just properties within ABACUS. The first one is a placeholder epic, and that's an epic that we will put somewhere on the roadmap. It could be 6 months, 18 months out, 2 years out. We don't know. We don't know much about it. We're not sure what value streams it'll impact, what teams it'll impact. So we just put a placeholder epic. And then when the time comes to analyze that and to decompose it, it gets decomposed into the other 4 types of architectural epics. And those are the capabilities, the enablers, the validation, and the retirement epics. So for example, the capability, those are the normal epics, features that enable within applications that give capability to the enterprise. But then you also have supporting epics around those. So those are the enablers. So maybe it's a data migration to get the data into the application, or it's an integration between 2 applications. Those are enablers. It could be upgrading a particular software for features that you will turn on later. Those are enablers. We also have different validation type of epic called validation. And that type of epic is not permanent within the enterprise. So for example, if you're doing a proof of concept with a couple different vendors, so temporarily you need to enable those and do that body of work. So those are the validations. They don't really stay as capabilities within the enterprise. They would probably get decommissioned after time once you choose or select a vendor to go with. Then you have a project that kicks off those real capabilities. And then of course the retirement ones, those are getting decommed, whether it's a system or whether it's custom application or certain features within an application that you need to turn off and do a little body of work to reroute those capabilities to another system. So the impacts of the architectural epic, systems, peoples, basically it's people, process, and technology. Those are the impacts that the architectural epic will have. Systems, the group of people are the IT folks doing the delivery. That's what we're tracking here. And the enterprise, those are the big processes, the value streams that I went over. And of course, we have the projects are also impacting them because they're delivering the capabilities. And the dependencies, we look at 3 different types of dependencies, and those are the one-to-one architectural dependencies, they're sequencing them, or the cross-value stream dependencies, or the Jira. So we look at we put a dependency on a particular Jira that the delivery teams work in, because they're working in Confluence and Jira all the time on a daily basis. We run a pretty lean IT, and so they're doing project work and operational daily work. So I want to be able to tie my enterprise architecture epic to their Jira that they're working on. I'll show you how I do that. Then, of course, the architecture epics have characteristics and properties. They're the ownership, who owns it, what's the life cycle that it's in, and dates that it'll be delivered. So looking at the architectural life cycle of an epic. So we go through a life cycle, and it could span a quarter or two, or up to 2 years. It'll follow the same life cycle, whether it's a long time frame or a very short time frame. So the life cycles are the orange boxes. The new, we're decomposing, planning, assessing, and in progress. And finally, we close it out. The light blue boxes, those are the status, the stage gates that we go through. And it could sit in a stage gate and not have any work done, but for a quarter or two, because projects get delayed or push things out for whatever reason. Then, of course, the different epic types that I've already went over about the placeholders and how we decompose it. So as we go through this, the very first starting place is we create a new epic. If we identify it, it's a placeholder. We may or may not know the value streams. We may or not know the people involved, the teams. So we'll identify it. We'll put it out a few quarters or a year or two, depending on where we think we want to have that work done. And then when we start to decompose it, that's the process where we get involved with the product managers and they're delivering the service. We call them product managers, the service delivery teams. And we start to decompose it and analyze the placeholder epic and see, okay, which value streams is this really affecting? What systems is it going to affect? And what relationships do we need to create between epics as we decompose it and we create the capabilities and the enablers, and what are we going to retire? Do a proof of concept beforehand. So we create those impact relationships between those epics. And then when we're ready to start actually doing planning, because we may put it out a quarter or two or whatever, but when we start to put it, we identify the quarter, we date ABACUS with that. And then during the decomposition process, we'll analyze, do we need to create a cross value stream epic, because different teams are going to be working on it. So we'll create some of those as well, put those dependencies in place. We'll then move to the assessing phase, and that's where a lot more people get involved, more of the BAs, more of the developers, and even other folks within IT doing security assessments, solution planning. Artifacts will be developed for that and signed off. And then we move into the project execution phase, and project managers get involved to create the project and the releases and things like that within that quarter. And they really work within Jira. Like I said, Jira and Confluence, that's where most of their work is done. And I'll usually take one or two epics to track, to validate one or two Jiras to put into and align with ABACUS, so I can track that work, because that's one of the most difficult things is keeping track of when it's in progress, and updating ABACUS to see whether it's been complete or not. And then, of course, it's delivered or could be canceled. But that's kind of the epic lifecycle that we go through. So let's go through some of the syntax of the architectural epic and how we write it and put it in, track it. So we start off with a verb, some capability. We put in features that we want and any adjectives and qualifiers around that, and the system that is going to be impacted. Sometimes we'll need a system and a module, because the systems are platforms like Salesforce. We have Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, various modules on there. So we want to know exactly what module of the system we're impacting. And so a few capabilities, normal capabilities that we're looking at. We have ability to apply and remove shipping holds in Salesforce CPQ. That's our quoting tool. And we're working on the putting a shipping hold, and some of the qualifiers are apply and to remove. Another one would be the ability to perform e-signature, customer contracts in DocuSign. So we use DocuSign for lots of other things, and the specific is we're enabling that for e-signatures for customer contracts. Maybe doing some reporting. So on Tableau, we will put a capability in for Tableau to put in some legal spend reports. There's a ton of other type of reports, but this one is specifically around this, and we know the team that it's going to impact, which is legal. So those are the normal type of capabilities. And of course, the enablers we have integrate two systems together to feed data between the two. One case would be Adobe Experience Manager feeding marketing content into Seismic, where the field sales can see that content and consume the content in Salesforce. Sometimes it's updating existing integration, maybe sending marketing qualified leads from Marketo to Salesforce. Sometimes it's deploying a large system within a infrastructure as a service vendor or SaaS vendor, Microsoft Azure, deploying a data warehouse in there in this application. It could be upgrading software, like upgrade Financial Force to the latest version, migrating data between two systems. And of course, the validation ones, whether we're doing a proof of concept on a new vendor that we're looking at, like Proofpoint for email phishing, or whether we've been using a Microsoft Teams for a long time and we're doing a proof of concept on a particular feature. So all these are bodies of work that need to get done, and we track. And of course, the retirement of the systems, decomming an entire system or decomming a custom table within a particular system. We also map the value streams. Like I said, the value streams are the large bundles of enterprise processes that really don't change quarter over quarter, year over year. That's kind of part of our framework. But the IT teams, the delivery teams, the product lines, those can change within a quarter or 6 months if there's going to be some reorgs, or if there's a level of effort to add more people to a specific delivery team, or that delivery team is overburdened and we need to separate the team and put more roles, people into various roles. So we basically map the service delivery team to our enterprise value stream so that we don't disrupt we don't impact our framework or our epic architecture too much. So delivery teams, come and go and get rise, but our value streams, they remain the same. So, for example, we would look at the service delivery team market offering, and maybe it's one or two people that are really looking at that IT, and they work with the pricing and licensing business team about the products and the offers. And right now, it's possibly in a spreadsheet. We're to digitize it and put it into a system like Salesforce. So that team is working, that our IT team, service delivery team, is working with the business team to impact the value stream idea to offer, which is where the offers pricing is adjusted and product catalogs are put together. We have demand generation, IT service delivery team. As you can see, that maps to both idea to offer, because we also need to understand the services, because they may have to then take that and add new campaigns around that, which would be in the market to demand process, Marketo application, our websites, where the demand generation team would need to make sure that the sales execution team also impacts idea to offer, because they would need to consume possibly new SKUs for those offers. So you can see that we got 3 teams within IT: market offering, demand gen, and sales execution. They're all separate teams working within their own applications that will interface with idea to offer in some way if there are new products and prices and changes in product catalogs and things like that. All right, taking a look at, we recently had normally we're working in the catalogs, in the catalog view, so I'm going to show you some snapshots of our ABACUS. And we recently had some analytic dashboards put together for us so we can visualize it better than working within the catalog. And so these dashboards, one dashboard just shows the architectural epics, the roadmaps in different quarters, and the epics that are being done or delivered or planned to be delivered in those quarters. We have the owners of those epics shown. We have the statuses and the life cycle and the types, so I can actually drill down to see those epics and actually show the catalog and display. So it's nice to have that visualization to work with the product managers and the other architects to see the epics and to look at planning perspective visually. In the lower right-hand corner, we'll have the Jira. So part of our meta model is to associate our epics to Jiras. I haven't operationalized this yet, but everything is it in Jira? It's false, but eventually we'll operationalize that and start tracking that better within Jira. So drilling down into it, it's really nice that I can look at the catalogs and have those conversations with the different folks and the different people and update it from right in here. And especially looking at the cross-value stream epics. Remember the cross-value stream epics are the ones that go different delivery teams across the large enterprise bundles, which are the value streams. What I look here is in practice, I look for the earliest date and the latest date of the architectural epics that are impacted by that cross-value stream. So here I look for if any of the cross-value streams are not delivered in the same quarter, that could be an issue. So we would have those conversations, and maybe it really isn't an issue. There's a way to mitigate it, and so then we would remove the cross-value stream epic and just make a simple dependency between two epics and go into different quarters. And then drilling down into one of these the boxes, we can look at a particular cross-value stream, which value streams it impacts and which epics are impacted. So taking a look closer now at our meta model. So I kind of described it as we're going through, but this is really what our meta model looks like in ABACUS. The colored boxes are our components, of course, and the connections between those boxes are the connections, and the ones that are in yellow and white are our properties. So we have our programs and projects, green box, so those are in a hierarchical relationship, and we have the properties on the projects to track whether what type of project, whether it's a large transformational project or a simple sustaining project, whether it's on our roadmap or not, and what the status is, if it's complete or not started. And then we go to the architectural epic itself. That, of course, impacts people, process, and technology. Our technology impact is to the systems. Our people impact is to the product line, which is our service delivery teams, and our process impact is to our enterprise value stream. So that's how we kind of associate our architectural epic and the impacts to the enterprise. Of course, projects deliver the epics. Epics do have dependencies and precedences on each other. And of course, the cross-value stream epics depend upon the architectural epics, which depend upon the Jira's getting delivered. So we have a way to connect all that together. That is our meta model for kind of managing change, looking out a couple of years. So I'm going to open up and show the actual catalogs and just kind of highlight a few things as we go in here. So looking at an architectural epic catalog, we look at the impacts to this product line. We look at the impacts to the value streams, which are in these columns over here. And I highlight in the value stream, in parentheses, the architect for that value stream. You'll see the architect owner, or the epic owner. We normally start out, the epic owner is most likely the architect of the value stream. But as we get more and more decomposed, we turn that epic over to the product manager. So you'll see that there's probably a product manager and the epic owner are going to be the same. And they don't have to be the same. We could have the architect epic owner stay as the architect if we need more governance. And of course, in the enabling ones, the enabler type of epics, they most likely may not be the same. But if it's within a particular value stream, that product owner most likely is the epic owner. Mapping, I talked about mapping the product lines to the value streams. So our value streams have epic architects, and our product lines have the delivery team managers. And just make sure that we have this connection type called contains that maps the product lines to the value streams. And again, showing you how we do it in practice for the architectural epic, the properties. It took a little while when we first developed it, to come up with the life cycle, the status, because one is really the process and one is the stage gates. We were trying to do two in once, but we decided we wanted to split the two and actually have them two, because during 1 to 2 years, it may stay in a specific stage gate and no activity is being done on it. So then you can go back and look to see where you stopped and what stage gate it was left at. There is some maintenance work on the planned end quarter. Every year I'll have to add the next 4 quarters and remove the previous 4 quarters and then archive the actual the epics themselves. Then we take a look at a catalog of projects, and these are happen to be on the roadmap, and there's a certain color code of the project status that we have, so we can easily see those projects from an enterprise view, maybe not from a project management view, but from a enterprise view, what epics are getting delivered and what aren't. And again, it's kind of a manual process where you're working with the project team to get updates, but since we run a pretty lean IT, getting the updates to see whether it's planned or assessed sometimes is difficult. And if we don't have frequent meetings, it may get delivered, but we may not update it in time to show, hey, it is delivered. So try and meet on a monthly basis to get updates. And so the colors identified, not really, no work has been done. Decomposed, a little bit of work because we've decomposed it into the 4 other types of epics, not a placeholder. Yellow means a little bit more work. It's planning in a particular quarter. Light green is being assessed by the team, and delivered, of course, is green or gray for canceled. So the lead scoring enhancements looks like it's going well. The retire PeopleSoft phase, and it says it's decomposed, but I think a lot of these epics may actually already be in progress. So doing the updates, regular updates, is a little bit of a headache for us. I think when I connect the Jira in, I'll be able to analyze whether the Jira is being worked on, and then be able to update this a little bit quicker. That's what we're looking at for the projects. And of course, the project property model, and putting in practice, I made it a plan cycle a lot more heavier than I needed to, because I only use really those 3 that are enable type, roadmap, and status. And I really don't use the begin quarter, end quarter. That's really project management type of work. As you can see, I haven't updated it for a while. So looking at the project, sometimes you'll, well, let's see, these particular projects, some are being delivered, the ones in green. Some have been canceled, or some have been, if the project has been canceled, Epic itself may or may not be canceled. So just because we didn't do a proof of concept or proof of value for this one particular vendor, we canceled the project and canceled the epics. We're not going to work on that. But another project, Success Academy, we canceled the project, but that doesn't mean these epics go away. We'll just place them in another quarter and push it out, or put them in another project. So the work you did to decompose those epics is not lost. And in fact, will probably be consumed by another project at a later date. So that's highlight that it's just because you cancel a project doesn't mean the epic goes away. Looking at from a system point of view in the catalog, we can see the systems and the impacts to those systems. So this may be good for a system owner to take a look at what epics are coming his way and what architects or epic owners are he may need to chat with, and what projects are being delivered. Now the color code for the projects is there's only 3. Red is not started, yellow is in progress, and green is completed. So it follows a little different color scheme than the epic color code scheme. And here's I wanted to highlight this example, looking at our system catalog. And as we progress through the year, epics have been delivered, projects have been closed out, so the green ones may have been delivered earlier in that quarter, maybe Q1 or Q2, and we're in Q4. So there's still other epics coming, and then actually we're also looking at epics that are projects that may not have yet been started because we're now starting to plan for 2020. So this could get kind of overloaded with old projects and epics that have been closed and new ones that are coming. It might be good at the end of the year to have a quick snapshot of what happened that year to take a look at, but eventually what I'll do is close out and archive those epics. I have an epic called Historical Architectural Epic that I will just move that to. So we can start with a clean slate, or maybe have a trailing 4 quarters or something like so. Also putting into practice, sometimes I'll have to create a couple different views for the system, one showing the quarter, one showing the actual owner, and depending on how I want to review it with the folks. And as we look at, say we take a look at the wording and the syntax of the epic itself. So as we identify it and we decompose it, you can see that, say for example, QTC OEM redesign, that's definitely a placeholder. Some placeholders have more words and more descriptive about it. But as we start to decompose it and we're working with the product managers, sometimes they'll question, well, are you talking about this feature or that feature within the application? That's a hint for us to say, okay, let's put a few more qualifiers and adjectives around that architectural epic so that we know when it comes time for them to review it and implement it, we know exactly what we're doing and what body of work is going to be delivered. So as we identify and decompose, that wording gets more and more descriptive. And moving from planning to assessing, you can see a lot more descriptive words here. And sometimes it doesn't need if we're retiring something, so it could get more descriptive, but it doesn't actually have to. And then, of course, moving from in progress to closed, looking back at Q2, what has been canceled, what has been closed. And we still have the history of that, which is not lost. Take a quick look at the cross value stream epic again and the dependencies. So looking at cross value streams epic and having those conversations with the different architects that this particular this cross value stream epic may impact. So even though the epic is very detailed and talks about the system itself that's impacting, the way we word the cross value stream is we leave the system off because it could be across value streams, across systems. So we don't want to necessarily constrain the cross value stream epic to a particular system. And so it's more of a high level wording for cross value stream. But this is good because then we can look at who are the architects, bring them involved, bring in the product line managers to make sure that, again, they're happening within one quarter. And see, this one is not. Maybe we need to disassociate one of those and sequence it as a normal, simple architectural precedence. And that's what this one is. Just a precedence, a sequencing, a one-to-one mapping. Actually, it doesn't have to be one-to-one, but we normally make it one-to-one, but you can have one-to-many if you wanted to, for the architectural epics. Can add decomposing those. So one of the things that I do is in practice is to look at the architectural epics and the precedences as we're decomposing it. All of these have been identified, but no work has been done to decompose it. And I look to see if the quarters, the dependencies are going to be okay. You know, not putting one before the other. Make sure that there's enough time between them, especially if we're looking at the work that needs to be done. Spacing them out a couple of quarters because sometimes scope gets changed, project gets delayed, and the epics will slip in time. So if you buffer in enough time for work, still needs to be monitored with the product managers. Another way that I look at the architecture precedence is I can actually look at the catalog of the connection type precedence, and it really is just I have a property on there called deliver, and a couple options. Do we deliver together, or can one must go before the other? And that just helps me sequencing it and picking the time and the quarter to put it into. The properties themselves, I created a super types for these properties. So if you look at the architectural epic, it really is a super type of a meta sequence. That's what I called it. And it really has, and I put those properties in that meta sequence property type so that I can inherit it into the architectural epic. And I also make my historical architectural epic of the same type so that I don't lose the properties as I archive those epics. So this meta sequence has three different, actually has more, but I'm showing you 3 epic stages, deliveries, and status. It's all about the sequencing and the planning of it. And I have a different, so it's of a super type role. And so the meta sequence has a super type, a meta role type, which is really the planning. And I have all the roles in there. So I'm able to inherit that, have a ton of others. So it kind of helps me keep it organized, a way of organizing, and a way of if I needed to archive different components, I can make it of the same super type, not lose the properties. So just taking a look a little deeper, you know, this is what the role type would look like. I have the different owners in here. Mostly using epic owner and product owner because those are the 2 that are mostly used. But I did have placeholder for business analyst, functional architect, and the SME. It's a lot of work just managing this, so I haven't quite operationalized the other properties of that. Go lives, they're just booleans. Life cycles, they're just lists. Right. And looking at Jira. Of course, our IT delivery teams, they work within Jira and Confluence. They do their documentation there in that wiki. And they are fully engaged in the road mapping within Jira, managing that work. So our architectural epic that we give them, they take that, they may or may not put it the same wording. They have their own syntax and wording that they put in Jira. So they could break down that epic into multiple Jira epics, multiple user stories, and tasks and subtasks, things that I really don't want to manage from an enterprise level. But what I will do is, I can look at their dashboards and see if one of those epics are relating to mine, or better yet, ask them for that particular epic that aligns to my architectural epic. But what I did is I took all the value streams and the product line management and put them into my own Jira. So I have a portfolio in Confluence of all the value streams, and I tag those epics. I put the epics into the value streams and I tag it with a product line manager. And so now I can have those conversations with them in Jira about what their projects are, and then I can take that Jira and link it. And so I haven't quite operationalized this, so there's something to be done, but my enterprise architectural epic 167, which is about retiring WebEx, and it has my syntax for that I use to retire an application. And I look, and we have that collaborative meeting, and we say in their particular Jira, their operational collaboration, they have OC14. They say Zoom Enterprise Migration, so they can have whatever syntax that they want and they manage it, but I will link the two together so that mine will appear and theirs, and vice versa. So this way I can look at their epics and see if what work is being done, or if it's being closed, then I can update mine. Not quite operationalized, but I modeled it out to make sure that it works properly. And then I can have those conversations instead of having them in ABACUS. ABACUS is really the long-term planning, whereas the delivery of their work in that particular quarter, I can have in Jira and in Confluence. So I can make certain dashboards and look at that from that perspective. I go to the initiatives, EA initiatives for marketing. What's coming up? Or I can go to what's been completed in sales execution and just confirm that, okay, they marked their Jira because I linked it and it's marked as done. Is it really done? We can have that conversation, or was it canceled, or for whatever reason. Then I can go into ABACUS and update it properly from that perspective. I do have a placeholder for that Jira in ABACUS, just not quite used yet. That is it has a depends on in the meta model. It's all blank right now. And then just to show you what I'm looking at next is the possibly a CIO dashboard for business outcomes, right? I don't think the CIO wants to know all those details of the architectural epics and the systems that it impacts and the value streams and the product lines. But a business outcome, high-level business outcome that a project or program is delivering, he may be interested in that. So I want to be able to put a business outcome, and I modeled that a little bit. Those business outcomes are something like accelerated revenue recognition, and I put the epics or the cross-value stream epics that it depends on. Improve cloud trial analytics. And so I'll have to look at that and see what kind of maturity I can show and dashboard. So I just started investigating the dashboards. We have those two new dashboards that Avolution did for us, and it looks like I'm going to have more dashboards to come. So that is it. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I'm for questions if Lisa is there.
Thank you, Omar. Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks. Thanks for sharing your work with Epics at Informatica. Once again, I'll just remind everybody, if you can put any questions you have in the Q&A channel, and we'll get to as many as we can here. So Omar, I'll start you off with an easy one. This one comes to the chat. Just getting to the Q&A. Are the views that you've created, were they created in ABACUS, or were they created in another tool at Informatica?
All the views in ABACUS that I showed you were in ABACUS, yes. Yeah, like the analytics dashboards, they were in ABACUS. I'm not using any other tool. The only other tool that I'm trying to use is Jira, and that's just to get the work with the teams in that current quarter to get the updates faster, so that I can then take that data and put it back into ABACUS, so I can have the historical data in ABACUS. And then I'll probably make historical dashboards as well to see what's been done over the past year or two. But I'm planning to only do it in ABACUS. It doesn't make sense, we do have Tableau, but it doesn't make sense to take that reporting and putting into another tool, especially the value is being done in the same tool. Unless I need to mash it up with other data from other tools, I'll keep it in ABACUS. If I need to mash it up with other data, then I'll extract it and I'll put it into Tableau and bring other data into Tableau, or the EDW and that into Tableau.
That actually, you mentioned there that you might do these reviews, historical reviews, and so on. So that brings up another question in the chat. Uh, what you mentioned that when an epic might get canceled, and I think you said the word archive a couple of times. So what does that mean? What does that mean in the Abacus project? I think you did talk a
Yeah,
little bit about this, but if you can maybe expand on it.
yeah, sure. So I have a component type called architecture epic, but I want to basically clean some of the dashboards and the catalogs, and I don't want to get messy year over year over year. So I created another component within Abacus with the same types of connections. I also have historical systems, um, and I don't have historical teams. I don't have historical value streams, but what I'll do is I will take that architectural epic and I will just change the type to historical epic. And sometimes the properties will go away, but I made it so that it's the same property type, super type, and so the properties should come along with it. And so that way I can then maintain a historical list catalog of epics and the dates and the quarters that they were delivered, the value streams that they were impacting. Now the value stream impacts, that's going to be a little different. Oh, I think I did create this. Also create a historical connection type because I don't want that to show up in the catalog if it's historical. So I took that meta model that I showed and created historical systems, historical components for systems and epics. And I took the connection types. I also made historical program impacts and historical deliver or depends upon historical projects. So I can maintain that history of what has been done because normally that gets lost. So that's hopefully I answered your question.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You did. A follow-on question to that. Do you do any quarterly or yearly reviews on any of those either canceled or completed or any of those epics that have that are, I guess, basically not current? Do you do any reviews and at what frequency? And if you don't do reviews, do you plan to do reviews in the future?
Yeah, good question. So what we do is those canceled ones, we will just put another placeholder a year or two out. And the review that we do is because it's in that particular value stream, we don't do quarterly reviews of it, and we try and do monthly or quarterly reviews of things that are being planned. And sometimes they'll talk about a project that was canceled and bringing that in. Well, then that at that time, opportunistically, I will go and look at those epics that we had once did and say, do we bring these back in? If nobody's talking about those features or capabilities, then I don't bring them up.
Actually, that brings up a separate point about who gets to propose these epics.
Oh,
You
yeah,
mentioned talking about it and so
yeah,
on, but who gets to propose these and talk about these? Who are we talking about?
yeah. So we do planning a couple different ways, and sometimes there's the bottom up where the product manager says the business is bringing us work and this is what it is. So then we'll have to create those epics that are coming from the service delivery teams. But we do our yearly planning, and at that time we do the top down. We will bring in the epics usually from our the VP of apps or VP of ops, and also the CISO. There's specific epics that they, or I should say, they're thinking in terms of projects and capabilities, not in terms of epics. And so we'll take their concepts and put them as placeholder epics, and then start to decompose them. So it's the architects that will work with the IT leadership to kind of get that information from the roadmap. Our IT leadership, they go out and they do when they do the yearly planning, they have those conversations. They bring in maybe our chief architect into those conversations, my manager, and have those and capture them. Sometimes not. But we'll get like a list of things that is a collaborative effort between our IT leadership and the business on what the projects are, or what the large, level of efforts are. And then we, as the architect team, will work with the product managers and those people that own those systems to say, okay, let's start decomposing their themes and their into epics, and start capturing it that way. So we do both top down and bottom up. We'll capture it.
Can you give us an indication of size? How many architects are we talking about?
Yeah, we only have a handful of architects, about five or six architects. Not all of them report to my manager, so we'll have some dotted line people that are in other groups, other regions that really are or act as the architect. So, but all in all, 6 or 7.
That's excellent. That's good. So another question here about your value streams. You talked about the decomposition of programs and projects, and then architectural epics and so on. Are the value streams themselves decomposed into lower levels?
Yes, they are, and I did put that also into ABACUS, but we do have a business architect that kind of looks at the groups in these business processes into also smaller bundles of enterprise epics, enterprise value streams. So, for example, one value stream may get decomposed into 3 or it could be anywhere from 3 to 10 large process groups, and each process group could get divided into another set of 10, and it could go down several different levels. I think there's like 4 different levels that the business architect maintains. We haven't really operationalized that in ABACUS yet, but that is something in the future that we want to do. So it can get down to the 4th level gets pretty granular, and so there's thousands of, it could be hundreds to thousands of processes that roll up into these Uber enterprise value streams. So yeah, they do get decomposed.
Thank you. And is this framework, decomposition of value streams and the architectural epics and so on, was that something that you guys came up with, a meta model that you built from scratch, or is it, or did you come across a reference framework that talked about epics? How did you come about building this framework?
Yeah, good question. Well, the framework we're using in ABACUS, it really originally, from a high level, came from Boast, which Informatica acquired. Boast was around for 20 years or so. Informatica acquired for their professional services team to kind of do enterprise architecture, but it kind of got shelved and not really used. So we took that framework and we modified it a bit for our own use, and we developed the architectural epic and put that in place. There are other frameworks that talk about the architectural epics, so we may have looked at 1 or 2 and kind of decided, how's it going to work for us, and this is really what we came up with. So it's kind of a blend.
That's okay. I think that's a place everyone's comfortable with. Blending, blending. So that's good. I appreciate that detail. Once you've got that blended architecture, you've got work coming in from Jira, especially, but also you've got your architects contributing information about their work with the business managers, the service managers. How is all that data maintained, especially from Jira, but any other places where data is being maintained?
Well, I mean, Jira it's really maintained within Jira or within ABACUS, and the historical data within Jira, I don't know how they maintain it or archive it after a while. I know how I plan on doing it within ABACUS, in keeping it around and or archiving it. But it's maintained in there, and I have to archive the different epics or the connections to make them different components, historical ones, so they don't interfere with the current or the planning quarters, right? But it's just maintaining the tool. We don't pull it out or put it into EDW or do anything with that. Hopefully, I answered your question about the maintenance of it.
Yeah, that works. I'll give it a little bit of a follow up and just ask: do you have? I mean, you must in a way here. I'll ask the question anyways. But what kinds of external processes do you have to ensure that that data does get maintained in each of those systems?
What do you mean by external processes?
Well, for example, if someone's doing work in ABACUS, someone needs to maintain an architectural epic. Is that just driven by people's own initiative, or do you have external governance that dictates, hey, this must be filled out before a specific quarterly meeting, or that kind of thing?
I see. Yeah, it's just in our own process, and we don't have any. Normally, we'll do our yearly planning, but it's really on the onus of us architects and really me, even though there's a handful of architects, I'm really the one that's in the tool maintaining it. If we were to, get everybody to maintain that within ABACUS or open it up so that the users can update maybe quarters within ABACUS, it's a little difficult to do that because we do run a lean IT and they're working in Jira and they're not going to want to work in another tool. So they maintain their data in Jira. It's really up to me to see if I can integrate the two or bring some of the completed Jiras and track it and bring it back into ABACUS. So there's a little maintenance work going through the life cycle of an epic and then archiving things at the end of the year. It's really on me to do.
You didn't say this, but that sounds like a feature request to me. Integrate with Jira.
That'd be great.
Appreciate that feature request. We'll definitely submit that. Thanks, Omar. All right, we're at the end of the hour here, so thanks again, everyone who attended.